I've never been afraid of the dark. That's what I used to tell people, anyway. I'd sleep with the lights off, walk through an unlit house without a second thought. Darkness was just the absence of light. Simple physics. But that was before I learned that the dark can hide things that aren't supposed to exist, that the shadows in the corner of your room aren't always just shadows. My name is your name, and for 23 years I was an only child. That's what my parents told me. That's what my birth certificate says. It's a simple, clean fact. But facts have a way of rotting when the truth starts to push up from underneath them. It started small, a flicker in my peripheral vision, a whisper of movement just behind my shoulder that would vanish the moment I turned my head. You know how it is. You tell yourself it's a trick of the light. You tell yourself you're just tired. You invent 1,000 rational explanations because the alternative is too heavy to carry. But last week, I woke up to find a second set of footprints on the frost on my bedroom floor. Small, delicate, the same size as mine. They started at the foot of my bed and led directly to the bedroom door, the door I always lock before I go to sleep. And the thing is, I could feel it. A cold, still presence in the room, a weight in the air, like someone was standing right behind me, breathing in time with my own lungs. That was the first time I saw her clearly. A girl with my face, pale as milk, watching me from the mirror's reflection. But when I spun around, the space behind me was empty. Only the mirror showed her still standing there. And she smiled. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat in the corner of my room with the lights on, my back against the wall, watching the mirror. The girl, the thing, was gone, but the silence in the room felt wrong, like the silence right before a scream. The next morning, I called my mom. I tried to keep my voice steady, but I could hear it shaking. "Mom," I said, "was I ever a twin?" There was a silence on the other end of the line, not a confused silence, a guilty one, the kind of silence that feels like a held breath. When she finally spoke, her voice was thin and reedy, like an old woman's. "Who told you that?" she whispered. My blood went cold. "Mom, just tell me." And then she did. The story came out in a rush, like she'd been waiting 23 years to confess. Yes, I had a twin, a sister. Her name was Lily. But the birth was complicated. The cord, it got wrapped around her neck. She was stillborn. They showed her to my mother, just for a second, a perfect, tiny, silent baby. And then she was gone. They decided never to tell me. They thought it would be a burden, a ghost I didn't need to carry. A ghost. The word hung in the air. I looked at my own reflection in the dark phone screen. I thought of the girl in the mirror. I thought of her smile. "Mom," I said, my heart pounding, "what did she look like?" "Oh, honey," my mom breathed, and I could hear the tears in her voice. "She was beautiful. She looked exactly like you, like looking into a mirror." That night, I did something I knew was stupid. I brought an old, heavy analog tape recorder with me to bed. My grandmother used to use one to record her dreams. I don't know what I was hoping for. Proof that I was crazy, maybe, or proof that I wasn't. I placed it on my nightstand, hit the red record button, and lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling. I whispered into the darkness, "Lily, if you're there, just let me know."
Nothing happened. The house settled. The heat clicked off. Eventually, exhaustion took over, and I fell into a fitful sleep. When I woke up, the sun was streaming through the window. The room felt normal for the first time in days. Relief washed over me. A bad dream, I told myself. Just a bad dream, triggered by my mom's story. I reached for the recorder and pressed play. For the first few seconds, there was nothing but the soft, static hiss of the tape. Then my own breathing, slow and deep. I was asleep. I was about to turn it off, to toss the whole silly thing in the trash, when I heard it. A whisper. It was so faint, layered beneath the static, that I almost missed it. I turned the volume up as high as it would go. My blood turned to ice. It was a little girl's voice, soft and sing-song, and it was coming right next to the recorder, right next to my sleeping head. The voice on the tape said, clear as a bell, "You don't remember me, but I remember you. I was there when you took your first breath. You took mine, too." I dropped the recorder like it was on fire. The tape kept playing, a long, drawn-out whisper that I couldn't make out. And then a new sound, a wet, choking, gurgling sound, the sound of a newborn struggling for air. And then silence. The tape ran to the end and clicked off. I sat there, frozen. I didn't take her breath. I was a baby. That's impossible. But the accusation hung in the air. The anger in that tiny, sweet voice was unmistakable. She didn't just want to be seen. She blamed me. I couldn't stay in that apartment, not after that. I drove to my mom's house, 3 hours away. I needed to see her. I needed to see the past for myself. When I got there, my mom was waiting on the porch. She looked older, smaller. She knew why I was there before I got out of the car. "I have something for you," she said quietly, leading me inside. She went to the attic and came down with a small, dusty cardboard box. She placed it on the kitchen table in front of me. I kept these. I couldn't bear to throw them away, but I couldn't bear to look at them either. My hands trembled as I opened the box. Inside, nestled in yellowed tissue paper, were tiny hand-knitted baby boots, 2 pairs, identical, a matching hat, a hospital ID bracelet, 2 of them, one with my name, the other with the name Lily, printed in faded blue ink, and at the bottom of the box, a photograph. It was a Polaroid, the colors faded and strange. It was a picture of 2 babies, swaddled in white hospital blankets, lying next to each other in a single bassinet. Me and her. But as I looked closer, a wave of nausea hit me. In the photo, my baby self was looking at the camera, my eyes shut, sleeping peacefully. But Lily's eyes were open, wide open, and she was staring directly at me, right at the camera, right through time. Her tiny face was still, perfect, but her eyes held a look that no newborn should ever have, a look of pure, cold awareness and resentment. My mom started crying. "Oh God, I had forgotten that photograph," while she sobbed. I couldn't speak. I just stared at the image of my twin sister, looking at me from the moment of our birth, knowing she was about to die. And in her tiny, perfect face, I saw the same expression the woman in my mirror wore, the smile. I didn't go back to my apartment. I couldn't. I stayed at my mom's house, sleeping on the couch in the living room, with every single light in the house blazing. It was pathetic, but it felt safer. The first night was quiet, the second, too.
On the third night, I woke up to a feeling of intense cold, the kind that seeps into your bones. The lights were still on, but the room felt thick, heavy. I looked towards the kitchen. The door was ajar. I knew I had closed it. I got up, my heart hammering against my ribs. I pushed the kitchen door open. The room was empty. But on the kitchen table, the box of baby things was open. I had closed it and put it on the counter. It was now in the center of the table, the lid off. The tiny booties had been taken out and placed side by side, and the photograph was propped up against the salt shaker, facing my chair. As I stared, the refrigerator magnet, a stupid little plastic strawberry, fell off the fridge door and hit the tile floor with a sharp click. Then another one fell, then another. They were falling in a line, leading from the fridge to the table, to the photograph, to me. And then I heard her voice. Not on a tape recorder this time. It was in the air, a dry, whispery sound, like leaves skittering across pavement. "You left me in the cold," the voice whispered. "Now I'm always cold." I screamed and ran back to the living room. I grabbed my keys, my phone, anything. I was going to leave, drive anywhere, just get away. But as I reached for the front door, I saw it, the lock. It was sliding back and forth by itself. Click, clack, click, clack, as if a small, invisible hand was playing with it, taunting me. I was trapped. The door was locked, and an unseen force was playing with the bolt. I backed away, pressing myself against the wall. The temperature in the room plummeted. My breath began to fog in the air. The lights flickered and died, plunging the house into darkness. But it wasn't total darkness. A pale, milky light was forming in the corner of the room. It started as a faint glow, then swirled and coalesced. A shape, a small shape, the shape of a little girl, no more than 4 or 5 years old. She was wearing a white nightgown. Her hair was dark, just like mine. She was facing the corner, her back to me. "Lily?" I choked out, my voice a ragged whisper. The little girl slowly began to turn around. My entire body was screaming at me to run, to close my eyes, but I was paralyzed. She turned, and she was me. My face, my eyes, my nose, but twisted, wrong. Her skin was a sickly, translucent white, with a bluish tint around her lips. Her eyes were not the eyes of a child. They were ancient and black and deep. And around her neck was a deep purple-red mark, a crease, the mark of the umbilical cord. "You were so warm," she said, her voice a gurgling whisper. Her little girl mouth didn't move. The sound just came from her. "So warm inside. I wanted to stay. Why did you get to stay?" Tears were streaming down my face. "I didn't choose, Lily. I was a baby. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you're gone." Her head tilted at an unnatural angle, like a bird's. "Gone," she echoed. The sound was almost playful, but it was laced with venom. "I'm not gone. I've been right here the whole time, watching you grow up, watching you live my life." She took a step closer. The floorboard didn't creak. The cold became unbearable, a searing pain against my skin.
"You took my breath," she hissed. "Now I want it back." She lunged. It wasn't a fast, predatory movement. It was more like she just appeared right in front of me. Her ice-cold little hands gripped my arms. Her face was inches from mine. Her mouth opened, and instead of a scream, a void poured out, a rushing, sucking wind, like I was standing at the edge of a bottomless pit. I couldn't breathe. It felt like the air was being pulled from my lungs, from my very soul. I was suffocating, drowning in the cold. Just as the edges of my vision began to go black, a blinding light exploded in the room. The overhead lights flickered back on. The heat returned with a whoosh. Lily shrieked, a horrible, piercing sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once, and she vanished. I collapsed to the floor, gasping, sobbing, sucking in huge lungfuls of warm air. My mum was standing in the hallway, her hand on the light switch, her face a mask of terror. "I heard you screaming. What happened? What was that noise?" I couldn't speak. I just pointed to the corner where Lily had been. On the floor, where she had stood, was a small, dark patch. It looked like water damage, but it was spreading outwards in a spiraling dark stain across the hardwood floor. It didn't look like a stain. It looked like a shape, a small, twisted shape, the shape of a little girl, a twisted little girl. "It's been a week. My mum and I are staying in a hotel. We can't go back to that house. The police went to check on it for us. They called yesterday. They said there's a dark stain on the living room floor that they can't clean, and they asked a very strange question. They asked if we had a child living with us, because when the officer was in the living room, he kept hearing a faint, rhythmic tapping sound coming from inside the walls. He said it sounded like a child's jump rope slapping against the floorboards. We're leaving town. We're driving as far away as we can get. But as I sit here, in this hotel room, writing this down, I can see my reflection in the dark glass of the TV screen, and I'm not alone. She's standing behind me, a little girl in a white nightgown, a dark mark around her neck. She's not smiling anymore. She's just watching, waiting. And in the reflection, I can see her mouth move. She doesn't make a sound, but I can read her lips, ready or not.